Welcome, everyone, to Recipe for Songwriting Musical Structure. My name is Amanda Friedman, and I am the program assistant here at the National Alliance for Musical Theater, or NAMT, as we like to call it. We are so excited to dive into today's workshop on the musical ingredients that go into writing a song, and to talk more about the application process for the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge for high school students. We have a lot to go over, and we're going to move pretty quickly, so just know that this is all being recorded, and we will put it on the NAMT website after this event. And today we're being joined by a very special guest, Joey Contreras, the writer of the musical In Pieces and the program mentor, one of the program mentors for the 2024 Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge. But before we chat with Joey, we're going to talk through what the Songwriting Challenge is and go step by step through the application process. So let's get started. Here at NAMT, our mission is to support musical theater development, production, innovation, and collaboration. We're a member service organization for the musical theater field, and our members include regional theaters, academic institutions, presenters, producers, and students. And we do this through a number of programs, including our annual Festival of New Musicals, our semi-annual conferences, our 2 granting programs, and of course, the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge for high school students, an initiative of the National Endowment for the Arts. The process of being involved in the Songwriting Challenge for high school students is an exciting artistic journey. The student, that's you, writes a song that could be part of a larger musical. And that show doesn't even have to be completed or written, just the idea of it. Students will submit that initial song to our Draft 1 round, in which all songs will be listened to and reviewed by a wide panel of NAMT members, NAMT artists, challenge partners, and more. All students will receive feedback on their initial submission from these professionals. So right off the bat, there's an immediate creative development component for all participants. And students will then have the opportunity to reshape their song based on the feedback received and submit the song again in our Draft 2 round. They'll show us how they've implemented those notes and give us more information about the character and narrative development within the song. This is the competitive round in contention for the winners weekend. And finally, from there, we'll select several winners that will have a chance to come to New York City, receive direct one-to-one mentorship from NAMT artists and more as they develop their song and prepare for a one-night only event where their songs will premiere on stage with Broadway talent. So looking at the timeline of this program, here are the immediate things you need to know. Submissions are open today. They are now open. You can submit your song, and they will stay open until February 2nd, 2026. This is for Draft 1 submissions, so feedback only. Songs will receive feedback in March 2026, and participants will have about 1 month to digest that feedback and implement it into their Draft 2 submission, which will open March 13th. This is the competitive round, and students must have submitted to Draft 1 in order to be eligible. Draft 2 submissions close April 10th. Songs will be evaluated, and a handful of winners will be selected and invited to Winners Weekend in New York City to workshop their materials, premiere their songs live in concert, and fully immerse in all things theater in June 2026. And speaking of Winners Weekend, let's talk a little more about what the students will be receiving at the end of this. First, in true NAMP tradition, there will be a cohort of winners representing the breadth and depth of submissions sent in. Students will be matched with NAMP writers and other prominent artists in the musical theater field to coach them through skill building, technique, process, lifestyle, and anything you can really imagine. Students will get sessions with their mentor writers to discuss the work they've done, what they want to do, and how to better the song they've written. And students will also meet with our music team, who will develop the orchestrations, build out charts, and help bring to life the music that the student has written and tried to capture in their submission demo. And this is all working toward a one-night only concert event of the winning songs and more in NYC, featuring Broadway talent that'll be live captured and streamed nationwide. And finally, there will be even more. We'll see shows and meet those working on stage and off to have a fully rounded experience on Broadway. Remember, there are interactive workshop opportunities throughout the submission process for all student participants to be a part of. And for a full list of upcoming challenge events, go to namp.org/challenge. To get started, here are a couple of places you can go for more resources. You can go to arts.gov/songwriting to learn more about the history of the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge. NAMP.org/challenge is your one-stop shop for all things challenge. More about the program, upcoming events, songs from our previous challenge winners, and the Writing is Rewriting NAMP Songwriting Resource Center. Submissions for Draft 1 of this year's Songwriting Challenge are due February 2nd, 2026. And here are the NAMT staff emails if you have any questions. And know that if you run into any technical issues, you can go to namp.org/submission-help. The Writing is Rewriting NAMP Songwriting Resource Center is live on the NAMP website at namp.org/rewriting. And as you begin working on draft 1 of your songs, check out the Resource Center for learning modules, songwriting tips, recordings of past challenge events, and our new at NAMP season 2 podcast episodes featuring conversations with previous winners of the Songwriting Challenge. If you're feeling stuck or looking for inspiration, the Resource Center is there for you. And here are a few more things that you can do to prepare for submitting to the Songwriting Challenge. We use Submittable for all of our applications. So you want to make sure that 1, notifications at submittable.com is in your email contacts. 2, you have successfully made an account on Submittable and remember the password. 3, you have checked out the submission guidelines. And 4, the student and a parent or guardian have signed the consent form available on namp.org/challenge. Step 1. When you begin to fill out your application in Submittable, you will be asked to fill out the song name and the song credits. So who wrote the music and who wrote the lyrics. Step 2 is all about you. You'll fill out your information, your name, your address, contact information, and your grade and high school. Step 3 and 4 will ask you a few survey questions. First, how did you hear about the challenge? And yes, you should be following at NAMT_org on Instagram. And second, we have a couple more optional questions about you. These don't factor into the review of your application. It's just a means of monitoring who we're reaching. Step 5 asks, is there another writer? This is really important. We need to know if another student writer contributed to the song and would participate in this experience. If so, select yes, and you'll be asked to complete everything again for the additional writer. If not, then you'll be able to keep going easily. Step 6 asks a few specific questions. Question 1, what we need to know here is that the song is both by you and by students. If the answer is no here, email us because you may not be eligible. Question 2 asks is that we're looking for new works. So if it's already produced or licensed, it also may not be eligible. Email us if your answer is yes on question 2. And question 3, we want to make sure you can join us if you win. Let us know that you'll be able to travel to NYC in mid-June in 2026. All expenses are paid for the winners and 1 chaperone. Step 7 is all about your song. Tell us what is happening in the moment that your song takes place. Who is singing? Who are they singing to? What do they want? When and where are they? What else might be happening in this big musical story? And don't forget, what inspired this for you? Where is this coming from and why? You can write this ahead of time and paste it into the section there. Step 8 is where you will confirm that this submission is yours and the work belongs to you. This is also where that parent or guardian completed form will be uploaded. You can find that form both in the application itself and on namp.org/challenge. Go ahead and make sure both the student and parent or guardian completes it, and then upload that signed document in this section. Please note that the form has 2 pages that you're required to fill in, so please upload both, or I will send you a strongly worded email. Step 9 is all about uploads. This is where you will start to upload the actual song components. First, you'll upload a demo of your song. Your demo can be up to 10 minutes long, but you should try to aim for about 5 minutes or less. Make sure you are checking the approved file types here. In this next box, place your written lyrics. You can write these in a note or document and copy and paste, but be sure the format is readable and makes sense. And some things to keep in mind about the audio demos. Clarity is most important. We have to be able to hear exactly what you want us to hear clearly. A quiet background and simple setup are best. And that's important too, keeping it simple. We can use our imaginations for what a full sound of the song is. A simple melody with maybe some simple solo supporting accompaniment is fine. A cappella submissions are also acceptable. And do it with feeling. Make sure you're getting the style and mood of the song. Interpret it as an actor. It's for a musical, after all. Next, you'll have the option to upload a 2-minute introductory video or a 1-page introductory statement about you. So here are a few things to think about with this. Again, clear and simple. Nothing flashy, a simple direct address is fine. And keep it short. 2 minutes goes by fast, so plan out what you want to say wisely. And be open. We really want to get to know you here. What's interesting to you about songwriting and why do you want to do this? You also have the opportunity to upload a written score. This is optional and doesn't affect the review of your application. Step 10 is the final check. Be sure to fix any errors that appear in red text throughout the application and check to make sure you've included the right files. Then hit submit when you are ready to send in your application. We'll review the submissions and let you know if we spot an error or a question, and you'll get the chance to make changes if we need you to. And that's it. Congratulations on submitting to the Songwriting Challenge. You'll receive a confirmation from notifications@submittable.com, so make sure it's in your email contacts. Feedback will come for all Draft 1 submissions in March, so keep an eye out for an email from a NAMT staff member. And again, we really encourage you to start your application beforehand. Log into Submittable, set up your account. It's really easy to do and will help you once you're ready to input all those pieces. And we have more upcoming events. Save the date for exciting upcoming challenge events. Next week, we have the second part of the song structure series, Recipe for Songwriting Lyric Structure, on Monday, November 17th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. So it's exactly 1 week from tonight, and that is with Shannon Burkett. We have December office hours coming up on Monday, December 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we have a Collab Lab Song Structure Cook-Off on Monday, December 15th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You can register for all these events now on namp.org/challenge. And now I am so excited to introduce our very special guest tonight, Joey Contreras. Joey, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you, Amanda. That was so much incredible, awesome information, and I highly encourage everybody to go in for this challenge. It is an incredible, incredible opportunity. Hi, I'm Joey Contreras, and I am a theater and pop songwriter. I've written numerous stage musicals, and I've also contributed to film and television. I've worked in a variety of collaboration models, sometimes as the composer-lyricist, and other times solely as the composer. So both those different roles come with their own set of skills and approaches. I am so excited to dive into the topic of musical structure. As a composer, I always try to think about how the music of the song is telling the story. And before we even dive into the technical structure of a song, it's important to think about music as the emotional bed, the world building of the song. You know, what feelings do you want the song to evoke in the listener? What are the colors and the textures that paint that picture? And to follow the theme that we're playing with, the recipe of songwriting, what seasonings and flavors are essential to this dramatic moment? How does the music provide subtext or opposition to the lyrical content? When we're building the music of a song, these are all questions that we'll keep coming back to. So let's dive in. All right. What are the musical ingredients of a song? Some of these things you might be familiar with, but we are going to look at all of them through a musical lens. So before we go into the specific sections, let's talk about song forms. And obviously, this is, a quick crash course on song forms. There are plenty of other different ways to kind of construct the shapes of songs, but this is a general shape and pattern a song follows from beginning to end. These are a couple of the song forms that we're going to focus on, two for today. The first is a verse-chorus. Now, you're likely familiar with this form already because most pop songs follow the verse-chorus structure. A verse-chorus consists of, as its name suggests, a verse and a chorus that repeat throughout the song. And there is usually a bridge where the song departs from that verse-chorus structure before returning to a final chorus. Sometimes you might get a third verse that comes after a bridge. But that's kind of the basic structure there of a verse chorus. And then another song form that we have is called an AABA. And an AABA song consists of A sections and B sections, where the A section is best thought of as a refrain that repeats then with the B section being the departure before returning to the A section. So before we even talk about the pieces, songs typically take a form that creates something that repeats before having a section that departs before repeating again. And then let's talk more about the specific actual ingredients that make up these sections in these songs. So, all right, these are some like ingredients. These are, my goodness, let's say this is the butter. Butter is important. A hook is important. The hook is a repeated musical and/or lyrical idea, and it functions as the thesis of your song. Everything else is helping you arrive at this hook. It is often found in the chorus if it's a verse chorus song, or in the A section of an AABA. Now, the hook as a musical piece of material might also be considered something that's sticky and catchy, and if you're more advanced, you can find ways to stack onto that piano hook with a string hook or a lyric hook, and that's something that I like to chat more about in other master classes that I teach or workshops where it's hooks on hooks and you can stack and stack and stack them. I think I taught one of those at NAMT, and there is a recording of it online if you're interested in learning more about that. But yeah, hook is the thesis of the song. Everything leads back to that hook. And then the next section we can talk about is the verse or the A section. Now, we kind of, I don't want to confuse this too much, but the verse or the A section is the setup of the song and the story. So, if we're talking about a verse chorus, and the chorus is the central message of our song, the main hook of our song. You might even consider that being kind of like the big broad stroke moment, right? In a verse chorus, this is when we can get a little bit more into the finer details of whatever story or moment that we are trying to get to, because we're all trying to get to that chorus, right? So this verse is going to provide us with the emotional context, the details. It's developing the journey. It's in some ways musically, it is maybe potentially leaner in the arrangement, in the orchestration. It's allowing space for a lot of text, a lot of story to come out before we get to something maybe perhaps anthemic, and that's bigger. These are all choices that you ultimately can make. But the verse is usually an opportunity to kind of work with a little bit of a finer detail. In an AABA, this A section, I know I said earlier it's sort of like a chorus. Some people you might say it's kind of like a verse, but the A section in an AABA is usually the more memorable, again, sticky, catchy, chorusy like music in an AABA. So if you think of, we're not going to dive too much into this song, but it's a really easy one to immediately just talk about, is Somewhere Over the Rainbow, right? The Somewhere Over the Rainbow is the A section, and that's so catchy, so sticky, everybody knows that, right? But that is the A section. That is a verse, but also sort of a chorus. So we call it just an A section. Yeah, so I think that's kind of some quick information about the verse and the A section, the hook. Then we're talking about the chorus. Yes, again, very much kind of lives simultaneously with the hook idea. It is the main message of your song. It might be higher in energy. It might be broader in scope. It is the catchiest part of your song usually. But like I said earlier, you can also probably find ways to make all little bits and pieces of your song hooky and catchy. But yeah, that's the chorus. Then we get to the bridge, or the B section. And this both operates pretty similarly in both a verse chorus and a AABA. This is usually an opportunity to depart from the things that we've established musically and give the listener a new thing to hear. It's what deviates from the path, whether it be a moment for discovery or a moment of concern or a new problem has entered the story, the journey, and the music will want to reflect that, right? So in a bridge of a verse chorus, that shift in perspective and emotion can really be anything as long as it's contrasting from what you've built up prior to that, and and that can come also in ways of vocal setting, the text of your character, the vocal line, the melody, or in the actual instrumental arrangement, accompanimental bed as well. So there's all these different areas that you can kind of dial in the contrast. In a B section in AABA, that's usually an even more clear deviation because you've heard such a tight A section twice now, and then the B section changes completely. Something I will probably reinstate later on, but also I will say right now is in an AABA, it's a traditional AABA will be in a 32 bar structure, and and so when you do have an A section being 8 bars and a second A section being 8 bars, those nice little kind of like I kind of call them like little pillow sections. They're just like kind of nice and concise and come together like a little pillow. Or right now, as I think about it, a little bit like a hamburger. It then makes that B section really stand out when you then go, oh, and now I'm going to think over here. You know, I'm moving on over here. I see something new, and then I return to that A section. So that's kind of some quick information about those musical ingredients. Then we're going to move on to some additional, I guess, would be sort of like if you're feeling a little spicier and you want to get a little bit more detailed with your building blocks. Something that I love to use is a pre-chorus. A pre-chorus is essentially that transition from a verse into a chorus. And it's for me, I love to think of it as an opportunity to start revving us up for a chorus. It starts like whether it feels like it's just like picking up some momentum, maybe not even through like an actual tempo momentum, but you can add that sensation, that psychological listening experience sensation of building momentum by adding things like 16th notes or just changing that note value using more of a forward movement arrangement can give that sensation of driving, like you're driving towards something. So that's a pre-chorus. A post-chorus is what I'm sure many of you could figure out from that. It's pretty self-explanatory. It comes post the chorus, after the chorus, and sometimes this is more of a pop music tool, but it can be found in musical theater moments as well, and it's usually like a could be like an echo or a repeated sort of vocal line, something that kind of just extends maybe the hook a little bit. If you have like a chorus, like if you're landing on a chorus line, whether that line be say mirror ball, and you were, you know, then going to just continue saying mirror ball or something like that, or kind of extend that, the of ball or something, those kind of would categorize as a bit of a post-chorus moment. And then we have a verse intro. Now, a verse intro is really typical in an AABA. So, and it usually kind of sets us into musical land, sort of like transitioning us out of the book dialogue-y section of a musical and starts like reminding us that we are singing in this show. It sort of provides an opportunity to also get a lot of like additional information that we might need um, emotionally about the character, kind of framing up the question, the conflict, whatever is sort of defining this song moment. A verse intro is a great way also to have a little bit of like a structureless moment to musicalize something before you get into something that's very kind of structured. Because an AABA is such a clean structural thing that I look at the verse intro as an opportunity to kind of like almost word vomit a lot of the additional stuff that you need before you get into a very clean, structured form. Um, and then we have a coda slash tag slash outro. Um, this is an opportunity to kind of put the final punctuation on your song, whether that be through some kind of repeated material. We're gonna listen to a song that I kind of almost consider it's an opportunity for like the battle cry, um, and an opportunity for like a final just release emotionally, depending once again on what your song is needing. Now, that was so much information. And I you will have this video available for you, and also the visual of all of this is really nice, just color coding and everything, and seeing that, because I know we're talking about ingredients, and yes, we can talk about it as salt and pepper and butter and all that stuff, but I do also think that imagining them as sort of like colored blocks like we see them here really helps you kind of then decide, all right, traditionally what's helpful is doing and building something like a verse chorus and a bridge and a chorus. But the more advanced that you start to get, you can start building new combinations of these and seeing what your song is wanting, as long as it's still maintaining a framework that feels satisfying, to the listener, and clear to the moment, and is landing, because everything is in service for the story that you're trying to tell, right? And because these song structures are so familiar to the general listener, that familiarity helps the listener, because then they're not pulled away by something that feels like a snag to the ear and then losing all of the lyric information, you know? So it is fun to kind of pick and create, but also to have a strong grasp on knowing what the importance of these blocks are and these sections are, and how they can really serve you in building something that is like digestible, accessible, when you want it. And if there are moments that you want it to be a little more strange and confusing and atonal and all those things, then you're in a much more advanced place. But this is a good sort of like, again, overview of ways that you can combine these ingredients, these building blocks. I think another good thing to think about, maybe while we're here, and maybe I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I had mentioned this idea of how you pull out your storytelling, and this is a little bit more of a lyric writing kind of mindset, but I do think that musically you can help convey this as well. Is that if a verse chorus is like in the most basic form, the verse is, this is what's happening, this is the story, I'm feeling this way, I've felt this way since I was 10, and now I don't know how I'm going to make it through, and now I'm at the chorus and I'm looking at the stars and the sun and the moon and I feel invincible, like if that's like, you know, the chorus suddenly, that kind of mindset is can be applied to a verse chorus. On an AABA, just kind of throwing out some ideas and some ways that like an AABA can be just immediately shaped is that in that song form you have a built-in structure that can help you with your storytelling. A classic way to kind of utilize an AABA to your advantage, to your just clarity of storytelling, is a past, present, and future model, for example. The first A section can be the past, telling the past. When I was 5 years old, this happened to me. And then the second A section is the present. Right now, I'm going through this thing. And then the B section is the but what if I don't want to go through this anymore and I need to figure out a new way to live my life? And then that final A section can be the future. And that future you being, there's a kid out there that is going to be this way. That kind of song form and that sort of storytelling structure is like can really just clarify your acting beats, your storytelling beats if needed. Um, Again, another AABA kind of way of utilizing that is to just make both A sections talking about something that happened in the past, and then the B section can be but what if, or the discovery, or the shift, and then that A section, that final A section, can be, for example, a and now here I am kind of moment. So just things to think about how these blocks can also inform your lyric writing and your storytelling beats as well. Let's move on to an example. All right, classic, right? We all know it, we all love it. Let's talk about waving through a window. Now, is this a verse chorus or an AABA? Before we listen, or are we going to listen first?
Let's listen and just try to notice it as we go through the song.
Great. Then let's listen to the song and then focus on it, and we'll chat about it afterwards.
And especially because we're just going to be really talking about the musical structure of the song. We didn't put the lyrics up intentionally so that we really want you to just listen and really focus on what is happening in the music. Try to pay attention to when a section shifts. And we're gonna take a listen right now.
Okay. So that is a very, very clear example of what? Someone in the chat. In a verse, chorus. Correct, Zoe. Yes, Alice. Verse, chorus, structure. Now, we kind of gave that away with this slide, but yes, I think this is such a. There's a reason why this is like always my go-to, because it's just like the clearest. And maybe I should start choosing a song that it's like maybe not as clear. But I think this is just such a wonderful. I mean, obviously it's like such a wonderful song, and it's also such a wonderful song that just cleanly and clearly shows what can be done with this form and with its form with incredible arrangement and orchestration, right? Because all of those other components do contribute to the emotional musical bed of this song and in the subtext of this character. And so I'd love to chat a little bit about that, but I want to see but I'd love to hear from you all. And if you could tell me, what did you notice in the transitions from the verse to the pre-chorus to the chorus? We'll start there. What are things that you were able to pick up on, whether that be I'll just stop talking. I'm going to stop talking, and you just you kind of just tell me a little bit of what you're thinking. You can unmute, you can chat. Yeah. Yes, I think there is a constant steady rhythmic pulse that's happening um, constantly underneath, right away from the verse. And I think the way he finds himself around that is an interesting thing to kind of to pick up on. And I think that is a clue, that is a something, as for an actor they can use that as something that unlocks something for them acting wise. But that is also, I think, something that is was intentional on the writing part of things. What else do we hear? Do we hear in that pre-chorus or going into that chorus? I love that in that so you have that constant in the beginning, and then you have these offbeats that are step out step all that syncopated, anticipated offbeat pull is so visceral, right? It really definitely makes me think that there's this sensation of like I'm being pulled in this direction. But I'm also afraid of it a little bit, and there's a curiosity there, and so there's that kind of that anchor, that part of the thing, and then and so I respond to that. There's another thing I respond to, but let's talk a little bit about the vocal line, the vocal setting. How would you describe the vocal setting and how that changes from verse, pre, and chorus? And when I say vocal setting, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm literally talking about the like, I used to slam on the brakes, na 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 key, na na, all that, the melody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So that is playing into that contrast, right? That we talked about, where the contrast is giving in the most basic musical like way of kind of treating it. It is just giving the listener something new to hear, a change, so that we don't get monotonous with hearing the same vocal range, the same everything starting on the same downbeat. It's that variation that keeps the listener engaged. So in this song, what's interesting to me is that in the vocal setting, and is that it all, I believe, doesn't start on the downbeat, because you can, when I talk about like the beginning of a vocal setting, the most simple way of quickly breaking that down is there's three different ways you can start a pickup of a vocal line. So you have the four and, so you'd be two, da 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 na 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 na. So that's starting on the four and one two ba do. If that was the verse melody, if I wanted to start it right on the one, we'd have da na 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 na. Hear that, 1 2 3, 1 2 ba do do do. That's where that melody is starting, right there. Or if it's on the and two after the downbeat, it could be da na da na 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 na. Do you hear that difference? So what's interesting about this song is that we have, if we're in this tempo, da da da, 2 3 and 1. I always say I used to slam. I'm awful with lyrics. I learned to slam on the break. 1. I learned to slam on the break. So it's not on the downbeat. It's on the and two, or past the downbeat. But then we have step out. I have the lyrics in front. Step out, step out. 1 step out, step out. So that's also past the downbeat. On the outside, on the outs. So all three of them are past the downbeat, which is so interesting to me, because normally I would say you would want to vary one of those to kind of give a contrast. But what I think is helpful is that there is something else that's being adjusted that is providing that contrast, whether it be the chord progressions, whether it be the rhythm in the music. And what I also think is interesting, and then we got to go, is that Yes, the vocal line is conversational and clipped and a little reserved in that first verse, and then when we get to the chorus, it gets a little stretched out. It's a little elongated. It gets a little hopeful. It gets a it's it's providing space for hope, or something. And then we get back to verse two, but there's little moments where he starts to riff just a little bit. He has a little kind of, and it's showing that slight evolution and hope within the character, even though they're still in the framework of their kind of first act, first song vocabulary, all right, that is a lot of information. We probably should move forward without talking too much about the bridge. But what I love, a classic move in this bridge, Shawn Mendes does it in all of his early albums. So many people do it, and it's so satisfying. The down the octave and then up the octave for a bridge. When you're falling through a forest, that, and then falling through a forest, going up the octave. It's always a classic, effective way to rev us into a final chorus. Yeah, so playing with that sparse and that pullback, all of that is helpful. And yeah, this slide is kind of just sharing a lot of the things that I just mentioned, how you can play with the arrangement from lean to dense, how you can use eighth notes, 16th notes, things that keep the momentum or give the feeling of driving or momentum without necessarily like speeding up the tempo, right? And building energy, building that tension and release. Yeah, the pre-chorus is an opportunity to kind of start really, really, really squeezing into that tension before we get into a big breath moment. It happens in waving. It's like band, music, and then it pulls back and it's light, and we have on the outside, always looking in, waving, going up there. It's giving that contrast and that release. And then if we think about the very, very end of the song, I mean, similar. We talked about the tag, the coda. It is kind of giving that battle cry, the final waving, waving. That whole section is almost like his defying gravity by song one. So yeah, all of these different musical pieces work together to create, honestly, quite a meal of a song, and it's constantly just ebb and flowing, keeps just expanding and then going back, breathing in, breathing out, allowing that space. These are all things that you will want to kind of think about when you're crafting your song. And it might feel almost formulaic, but how you find yourself within that formula, especially in your early days of songwriting, will be a great opportunity for you to find your voice within that structure, and that structure will eventually set you free. And so I would encourage you to really be strict with yourself, because a song can get rickety real fast, and that's fine, but I think these song structures are always great to return to and to really have a good kind of grasp on them, and it's empowering to kind of know, like, oh cool, I'm going to keep this real sparse so I can get this very wordy verse out, for example, and then I know that my chorus is a little bit, more of a soaring vocal, and then I can get a little more crazy on the piano or a little more crazy on the arrangement or the production or something. You just want to constantly keep things at a good balance, and that will ultimately also give, as long as you're just being, what your intention is for the listener. If you want them to feel, I don't know, obviously if you want them to feel uncertain, then you can mess with that structure. But you know why you're able to give that feeling, and that's because someone might be expecting something. You've set someone up for something, and then you take it away. So, I'm sure you've heard you gotta learn the rules before you break them. Now that we've looked at the musical structures of two different songs, let's think about the way that you can start to structure your own songs and what strategies are available to you in your musical toolkit. I love a musical toolkit, literally. It's so much fun. Um, Amanda's laughing at me. It's true. Um, so let's talk about starting with the hook. Um, so as I mentioned before, this is the thesis of your song, and everything else is helping you arrive there. So with Out of Print, I was like, I know Out of Print is my hook. I know, so everything has to come back to this idea, and um, and yes, it is helpful if it's a lyrical hook, but and we can talk about this too. It's like if you're working with music first, or if you just want that musical moment to be super sticky, super catchy, you want it to land on the most important part of the song. Um, Something that you can do musically to kind of find the way you can find your melodies. If you're setting lyrics, or if you're setting lyrics, or if you're writing lyrics first and then you're trying to figure out melodies, something that is helpful just to kind of figure out the phrasing is to speak the lyric out loud and feel the natural rhythm, the natural cadence of those words. That's a tip there. Another tip for when I'm coming up with a hook for a song is I start with a tempo or a BPM to get the feel for a rhythm. I'll create a loop or a groove to create the vibes of a song and the world I want to live in. It can literally be two chords back and forth and back and forth. I'm always thinking dramaturgically, what are the colors and feelings I want to evoke? I am a self taught pianist, so I am not. Usually the writer that's going to find every single color and feeling I want to evoke purely from the piano part of the process. A lot of that additional stuff I already automatically hear in the strings, in the drums, in the guitar, in the if there's synths, like in a lot of additional kind of musical content, and that to me is usually when I add other colors and feelings and textures. But I think kind of naturally too, like without getting too theory minded on it, I think that you might find that where your vocal line is matching up with your chord progressions is perhaps creating tension, and maybe you didn't know that it was creating tension, but it feels like tension, and that's all that matters. So another thing to kind of think about is playing with the note values of your piano accompaniment, whether that be half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, getting quick, getting slow. All of that can create sensations, can create vibrations and feelings and emotion and intention. And how does that interplay with your vocal line? You don't, again, I'm not going to say don't, but you balance is nice. So if you have a lot of wordy patter stuff, making it not overly clash with a lot of busy in the accompaniment as well, unless your intention is to create a bombardment for a specific reason. So once you've come up with your hook, you can build a melody from it by choosing when you want the melody to begin. We talked earlier about the four and, or on the one downbeat, or the and two. In my song, for example, how many books does it have? That's right on the downbeat, and then we have the pickup. Dating is so disappointing. Na 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 da. And when you, so yeah, that's an example of, and then the O on the B section. Oh, that was right on the downbeat. So that's how I think a lot in writing my vocal lines. Um, Now, once you have figured out the hook of the song, what form should the rest of the song take on? Um, yeah, this is a great thing. I mean, choosing a verse chorus or an AABA. I mean, I'm curious for you all, like, and you can put in the chat, like, what do you tend to gravitate towards when you're writing your songs, or where you've started and everything? Have you been writing a lot of verse choruses? Have you been writing a lot of AABAs? Um, these will all be the choice is such a great character trait for your character. It's such a great decision because it's going to be the way that your character it's vocabulary building, right? It's how your character lands on a hook or lands on a chorus or lands on a message or communicates that message is such an interesting thing. And so deciding, like, oh, is my character someone who's going to sing and speak and think in verse chorus land, or do they have that kind of mentality of AABA? And I'm depending on it. I think that it really um, can say a lot about a character if the song it just can really, I think it really can say a lot about the character. Um, Sometimes AABAs to me seem very sure of themselves, right? Like a when you're starting so strong with a melody right off the bat, like it's an interesting choice. Um, Now, specifically for a verse chorus, you'll want to think about how to vary that verse from the chorus. If the chorus is major, you may want to put some tension in the verse, so maybe the verse is minor. If you think about a pre chorus, that can serve your song to transition from the verse to the chorus. Um, these are all things to think about. You can use the same chords between the verses and the chorus, but vary the melody line. Or maybe you can use the same set of chords, but only use two in the verse and then four in the chorus. Rhythmic contrast is also a fun way to build momentum, like I keep on mentioning. Um, yeah. Uh, Building this bridge or this B section. Uh, always think discovery, struggle, opportunity, or problem. Those are the kind of the four things, especially early on, that you can just keep in mind to keep that bridge active and to inspire the choice making. Um, what is the discovery? What is the new struggle? What is the new conflict? What is the opportunity that's going to carry me into this final chorus or this final A section? Um, is there a key change? Is there a tempo change? I keep on saying you can build momentum um, without actually changing the tempo, but you know songs can breathe. You can have fermatas, you can have free movement, you can have rubato, you can do all those things. um, and and as I mentioned before, but I'll say it again, like how you can do that is with note values. Eighth notes, can eighth notes become quarter notes? Does the music expand or contract? It doesn't always have to be grand. Like the B section in Out of Print doesn't go somewhere completely overly new, but it does break form. It does break what we've set up on the first two A's. Um, and yeah, so let's see this last slide. Um, these are popular chord progressions: 1-4-5-1, 1-5-6-4. I also love 6-4-1-5. You can check these out on YouTube. Another thing, again, if you're feeling like you're not the strongest player, um, you can just find a chord progression on YouTube and just try to start building your song around that chord progression. Finding your sing on top of it. You can mumble, you can start at gibberish, you can do any of that, and see what feels exciting, and then just keep working from there. Um, Structuring the music is all about creating a pattern and then providing that contrast. So, um, setting up expectations and then subverting that or delivering on that in a refreshing way. I mentioned this earlier that people respond to familiarity. They like that feeling of like, I know what's coming, but not in a necessarily annoying way. I think that, for lack of a better word, that was really not, yeah, that in a way that's not so overly predictable. I think familiar is nice. Predictable is the annoying version of that. Um, creating creating that sensation and finding your way there in a refreshing way is what's going to keep listeners both like engaged and excited and also open to hearing what's additionally happening, because musical theater, as we know, is very different than pop music, where there's a lot of storytelling that has to happen too. So it's constantly just carving, balancing, contrasting, a lot of different kind of moving pieces, um, and and it's a lot of it can be a lot of fun. It's if you just take the pressure off of needing to get it right. Um, so I think that's where we will end today. A lot of information. There's a lot of information, but I think it's going to be super helpful on your journey. Well, I am so excited for all of you. I hope that you're all planning on submitting to this NAMT challenge. Like I said earlier, what an incredible opportunity it is. So having been a mentor to some previous winners and getting to see them go through that whole journey was, my goodness, something I would have loved to do when I was younger and in high school. Yeah, it's a really great opportunity, and I really appreciate you all tuning in tonight.